Okay, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahak Wadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. So they have this article I want to jump into, and they actually not too long ago just switched up the article a little bit, added a couple of things. So we'll see as I read through, because even the title was changed. It was something completely different. But now it says Iran president says prepare to end war if security guarantees offered. Oil plunges, right? So getting into it. Summary: President Pezeshkian prepared to end war with guarantees against further attacks. IRGC warns it will hit 18 U.S. tech companies in region, says Siemens in Israel already attacked. In which the IRGC is the Islamic Republic of something, right? Won't hurt to search it up. Basically Iran with the threats, right? The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is a multi-service primary force of the Iranian Armed Forces. It consists of 5 service branches: Ground Forces, Aerospace Force, Navy, Quds Force, and Besiege. Right, so they're armed forces. So IRGC warns it will hit 18 U.S. tech companies and regions since Siemens and Israel already attacked. China, Pakistan issue broad 5-point framework for peace. Document below. France, Italy begin to block aerospace for Iran-related U.S. ops. Right, so we see that things not only are escalating, but as we read down here, France and Italy, right, the prophecy of the beast basically hating the whore, is escalating as well. Getting to that point. Warsec Uteri Hegseth saw upcoming days will be decisive. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to say says. But Warsec Hegseth says upcoming days will be decisive. Strikes will continue without any deal, says regime. Fragmenting, in which fragmenting is like breaking apart. President Trump signals off-ramp, tells world go get your own oil, says Iran decimated, tells New York Post the strait could automatically open. Isfahan, home to much of Iran's enriched uranium and sprawling missile city, was pounded hard overnight by U.S. 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, right? So this is a summary of the article. Now here, oil plunges on Iran overture. A big developing headline has sent oil plunging. Iran's President Pezeshkian states they are prepared to end the war if they receive guarantees. Now, what are these guarantees? Iranian President Pezeshkian, we're just going to say President P. All right. Iranian President P says Iran seeks no war, but is prepared to end it with guarantees against further attacks, per State Press TV. The U.S.-Israeli military aggression against Iran is an unprecedented crime and a flagrant violation of international law. Yes, and we all know this. Iran engaged in good faith talks with the U.S. only to be illegally attacked mid-negotiation, proving the U.S. rejects diplomacy, right? And scriptures say that these devils do things like that. That they, I believe it's in the book of Psalms. Let's see. I know it's around this verse. Here is the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 20, right, dealing with the wicked, and we know the ultimate wicked is Esau Edom. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant, right? And these devils attacked Iran while they were mid-negotiation, man. They came out themselves and said that a negotiation or a finished negotiation was pretty much right there, and they attacked Iran anyways. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, right? That's the negotiation period. You know, talking things out or having, you know, plans proposed, you know, but war was in his heart, right? So what they're pretty much saying to you is the opposite of what they're thinking and what they really want to do. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. You know, so that's that right here. Iran engaged in good faith talks with the U.S., right? It's funny, you know, throwing that word around, faith and U.S. in the same sentence don't really correlate. Iran engaged in good faith talks with the U.S. only to be illegally attacked mid-negotiation, proving the U.S. rejects diplomacy. Neighboring countries hosting U.S. base, and that shows you how the U.S. really is the problem of this whole world, man. You know, they can't even act on diplomacy, man. What if they can't act on diplomacy? What is there to do? Neighboring countries hosting U.S. bases failed to prevent their territories from being used to attack Iran. The solution is an end to aggression. Iran seeks no war, but is prepared to end it with guarantees against further attacks. Europe should drop its destructive approach and engage with Iran professionally and in line with international law. And they tried to do this already, dealing with, well, that's North America, so, you know, not really Europe. But we'll see how that goes. And then you have here a chart, crude oil, I guess, stocks dropping. Continuing the article, a big question will be whether this could represent an IRGC versus civilian government divide, as far as whether this peace overture sticks. Also, the US and Israel would have to both agree to halt the ongoing aerial strikes. But it's not at all clear whether the Netanyahu government would be on board with ceasefire, given many believe Israel's objectives are much more expensive, oriented toward total regime collapse. Trump Hormuz Strait to automatically open, right? And then on Israel and really the US's side, it really wouldn't make sense for them to just stop, you know, because what did they gain? What was the purpose of this war? You know, and that's another thing that the article is going to get into, the whole goal of this war. You know, what really is it? In which we know what it is. Or one main reason, right? But continuing, Trump, Hormuz Strait to automatically open, question mark. When we leave the strait, will automatically open. President Trump has told the New York Post Tuesday, Slovakia, when asked whether he's considering ending action in Iran without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. So if that's if that's the case, right, why are you trying to fight to open it if you can just leave and it'll automatically open? That's, you know, that's counterproductive. Well, I think it'll automatically open, but my attitude is I've obliterated. Seeing this is Trump, right? He's like a big ass child. But my attitude is, this is how I feel, what I think, you know, versus what's actually important, you know. But my attitude is I've obliterated the country. They have no strength left, and let the countries that are using the strait, let them go and open it. Because I would imagine whoever's controlling the oil will be very happy to open the strait. Trump continued. And that's another thing that these devils are, as we're going to read, or as we read up here, right? Trump is pushing for basically, you know, if the U.S. was to withdraw, to basically the U.S. to step back and let the countries who need who really need the strait open to go open it, you know. And that's another reason why these countries, or America's allies, you know, or pretty much the world, is fed up with America, man. Because what that is like, you know, say you have someone in your crew, they go pick a fight and they fucking leave, and you have to deal with the shit that they started, you know. And it's like, why did you even start this in the first place? Now we have to deal with it. And that's basically what he's trying to do. So continuing, they have no strength left, and let the countries that are using the strait, let them go and open it. Right? When if you never intervene, it would have been open in the first place. Now we have to go to war and open this strait because of what you did. You know? Because I would imagine whoever's controlling the oil will be very happy to open the strait. Trump continued, but we won't have to be there much longer, but we have more work to do in terms of killing their offensive, whatever offensive capability they have left. And this shows you the double-tonguedness, if that's even a word, that scriptures speak about. You know, the deception that scriptures speak about when coming to these devils. Because he's saying, but we have more work to do in terms of killing their offensive, speaking about Iran. And up here we just read what? I've obliterated the country, they have no strength left. Well, wouldn't that strength or this offensive that he has to continue to kill, would that not be the strength that they have left? You know, so this devil is just speaking out his ass. He's completely contradicting himself, you know, within the same breath, man. Let's get the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach. I believe it's the 18th chapter, the 28th chapter. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 28, verse 13, straight to the point. Curse the whisperer and the double-tongued, right? In which the double-tongued is basically, you know, what we just read Trump just did. You know, he contradicted himself. On one hand, you're saying this, and then on the other, you're saying this, and, you know, they completely go against each other. Curse the whisperer and double-tongued, for such have destroyed many that were at peace. You know, and really, you know, it's not that they were really at peace, but they destroyed the peace that could have been. You know, because as we just read, they were mid-negotiation, and yet they still launched this war. You know, they destroyed the peace, you know, quote, peace that the world was in, or the harmony that the world was in, dealing with, you know, the oil and the Strait of Hormuz and consumption and distribution, right? That peace. For what? You know? For what? Now the world is pretty much on an economic decline. So let's actually get the etymology for that word double-tongued. Here's the AI overview. Double-tongued refers to deceitful, hypocritical speech. And that's exactly what Trump is doing, man. And not just Trump, but, you know, pretty much the U.S., you know, his whole cabinet, the government. It combines double, twofold, and tongued, directly translated the Greek dilogos, two-worded, from the New Testament, 1 Timothy 3 and 8, which describes saying different contradictory things to different people. Describing someone who says one thing to one person and something else to another. It signifies being insincere, deceitful, or hypocritical in speech, right? And that's, you know, Esau through and through. Right? Scriptures say they be born speaking lies. Right? They're likened unto the devil, which means what? Deceiver. Where were we? Right. Because I would imagine whoever is controlling the oil will be very happy. Devil, right? Hold on. Make sure I'm right on that statement. 2 Thessalonians 2:9. This is Satan, adversary. That's Revelation 20 chapter, 2nd verse. Right. Here, Revelation chapter 20, verse 2, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now, this verse is dealing with not the literal demon Satan, but the physical counterpart on this earth, right? Those who come to do the workings of Satan, right? And the serpent, the dragon, the devil, these are pretty much, other names for Esau, Edom. And at this time, specifically, it was dealing with the pagan Roman Empire, or the Western Roman Empire. But I said that the word devils means deceiver. I just want to look into it. Slanderer, accusing falsely, right? So that is a form of deception, but it means slanderer, right? Diabolos, prone to slander, slanderous, accusing falsely. And in order to slander, in order to accuse falsely, you have to have a double tongue. A calumniator, false accuser, slanderer, right? All right, so going back. But we won't have to be there much longer, but we have more work to do in terms of killing their offensive, whatever offensive capability they have left, right? Even though we've just completely took away all their strength, we still have to fight them, right? To take away the strength that they have left. Because that makes sense. Antiwar.com's Dave DeCamp points out a certain circular reasoning and sad reality of where the situation stands. The goal of the war has become fixing a problem that didn't exist before the war, right? And that's where that leads us to the actual goal, is to basically bring down this world's system, right? Which is through the collapse of all the energy, and the economy, of the entire world. Because the goal of the war has become fixing a problem that didn't exist before the war. What is that? Pretty much that's problem, reaction, solution, where they have something that they want to implement, something that they want to bring out, right? Something that they want to do. But in order to do that, they need pretty much a catalyst, right? And that's where they do what? They cause a problem so that the solution to that problem can be what they wanted to bring out in the first place. They just needed a reason to do it, and in this case, the problem that they caused was basically a world energy collapse, pretty much a global collapse, man, to get rid of this world system in order to bring in what they really want, a digital world system that would ultimately give them total control. When brothers speak about total control, we pretty much mean total control of everything, man. They will control how much money you make, what you can spend that money on, when you can and cannot step outside, right? They control things like if you can have children, so and shit like that, right? Through pretty much a digitalized world, and in order to participate in that world, you would need the MOTB, the mark of the beast, because that prophecy has to come about some way, before this world can end, before World War III goes nuclear, and before America is destroyed. That prophecy has to come about. And this would be the perfect, catalyst to bring that prophecy about. Because if that's not the goal, what is? The goal of this war has become fixing a problem that didn't exist before the war, which is to what? Pretty much reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That seems to be the goal right now, but before this war started, it was already open. So what was the reason for starting the war? So continuing, IRGC threatens U.S. tech companies in region. The IRGC has reportedly threatened to target the Middle East operations of 18 U.S. technology companies starting Wednesday night, in which I believe when they first back last year, right? I believe it's known as the 12-day war with Israel and Iran, and America also helped too when they claimed to have destroyed their nuclear facilities and whatever they were working with, in Iran, which they later came out and said that wasn't true, right? During that time, I believe Iran threatened to close the strait even back then. So what made them think that the same thing wouldn't happen now? So they knew, right? It was dealing with the powers at be, the elites who really orchestrate all of this. They knew that the Strait of Hormuz was imminent. They knew that was going to happen, So to say that is now the goal, no, man, that's not the goal. The goal was this economic collapse, man. Because it's like, an example here. Let's say you're writing something, pencil, paper, and you want to write something else, right? You made a mistake or whatever, or you just want to change what you wrote. What do you have to do? Take the eraser and erase what you wrote. Or if you're writing in a pen, you cross over what you wrote and write something else. Either way, you have to erase, or undo what it is that you wrote before. You can't just write on top of it, right? And that's the same thing with the system that they have in place now with the world. They cannot just establish this, this digital system on top of what they have right now. In order to get it in its fullness, they'd have to do away with the current system and just bring in the new one. And that's what they're in the process of trying to do, man. Because there's only so much that you can do adding on top of something you have already. Because what you have is a foundation that's not you're building on top of foundation, trying to create something with a foundation that's not made for what it is you're trying to create. So therefore you have to remove that foundation and place the one specific to what it is you're trying to build up. And that is that new technological system, man, that they're trying to create. So they got to do away with this old foundation. That's the real goal. And again, it's all leading to the mark of the beast, that RFID chip that is going to be made mandatory in order to pretty much live, and I mean live as in participate in life, right? Participate amongst the world. Now, continuing, IRGC threatens U.S. tech companies in region. The IRGC has reportedly threatened to target the Middle East operations of 18 U.S. technology companies starting Wednesday night. It warned of this escalation should any more senior military commanders or government leaders be assassinated. Among companies named in a statement include Apple, Google, Tesla, Microsoft, Intel, Oracle, IBM, Meta, Nvidia, Boeing, and others. That's the whole, that's pretty much everything, man. This may have already started happening in terms of the ongoing Iranian bombardment of Israel through the ballistic missiles, though the ballistic missiles are said to be less frequent compared to opening weeks of the war. News Squawk, Iran's army says they have targeted industries belonging to Siemens, in which Siemens, I believe that's like a German technology company or whatever, right? Again, it doesn't hurt to search it up. Siemens AG is a leading German technology conglomerate focused on industrial automation, intelligent infrastructure, rail transport, and health technology. Right, so they're coming after the tech, as we just read. Belonging to Siemens and AT&T in Ben Gurion and Haifa, confirmed in state media based on emerging reports. They are Cisco, HP, Intel, Oracle, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Meta, IBM, Dell, Palantir, Nvidia, JP Morgan, Tesla, General Electric, Spire Solutions, G42, Boeing. Iran's IRGC issued a warning against 18 American technology companies, among them Microsoft, Apple, Google, Intel, Boeing, stating that they will be considered legitimate targets in response to terrorist operations carried out by the U.S. and Israel. Among Hegseth's earlier themes, which we said signaled preparation for an off-ramp, is that he asserted that heavy U.S. strikes on Iran are fragmenting the regime, right? So basically, breaking it apart, the regime, and greatly dampening morale among Tehran authorities, in which that, I find that hard to believe. Our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations among senior leaders. Well, and this is when you really get to the whole propaganda point that you dealing with war, where one team is saying this about the other team, and yet the other team is saying this about the other team, and the other team is saying this about themselves, and yada yada yada. Because if you go on, pretty much look at what Iran is saying, this is far from the truth, right? They're amped up and ready, pretty much ready for whatever the U.S. and Israel has to throw at them. They're welcoming pretty much U.S. ground troops. They basically saying, see what happens with that. So to say that the morale is dampening or falling, I find that hard to believe. But either way, what we see is escalation. So continuing, our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations amongst senior leaders. Hegseth said at the morning Pentagon briefing on Tuesday. Also, General Kane added that the joint force continues to degrade and destroy Iran's ability to project power and threaten stability beyond its borders. Now, they're saying this. Meanwhile, Iran said that, the missiles and pretty much artillery that they were using is from years back. They haven't even touched the big stuff, the new stuff, so why would it be that their morale is falling when they're pretty much just getting started? And yet America and the U.S. is still having a problem with Iran, and they're supposedly playing with old toys. They're dealing with $50,000 drones. Meanwhile, America is burning through billions of dollars trying to stop them, and so on and so forth. So continuing, the joint forces continue to degrade and destroy Iran's ability to project power and threaten stability beyond its borders. President Trump has followed in words given to New York Post that he doesn't expect the war to continue for much longer, telling Americans they can soon expect an end, in a repeat of similar remarks from last year. So, what does this make you think of, right? When it shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction, right? Because in which, in this case, it would be when they shall say peace and safety, wow. Peace and safety, then continuation, right? Then escalation. Because what did we just read here? It says they can soon expect an end, in a repeat of similar remarks from last week. So they were saying the same thing last week, yet here we are a week later, and they have to say the same thing, meaning that it surely did not end, right? And instead it's increasing because recently, what did the U.S. do? They sent troops. I believe they actually sent troops now into the Middle East. That does not sound like a war that's ending. You're supposed to be withdrawing troops, yet you're sending them. That sounds like a war that has yet to begin, actually, right? So in a repeat of similar remarks from last week, in which the Scripture I quoted was 1 Thessalonians 5, the 3rd verse, for those who don't know. France, Italy block Air Force for some U.S. planes operating in Iran. Right, so now we're getting to the Revelation 17th chapter part of the article. France has reportedly refused to allow the United States to use its airspace to transport weapons for the Iran conflict, marking the first such denial since the war began, according to Reuters. You know, so pretty much scriptures say that in the end of America's allies are going to aid in destroying America via nuclear weapons, right? And France is one of the countries in the EU or NATO, I believe, that also has these nuclear capabilities. So it's funny how, France is always a prominent name that's being spoken of when it comes to pretty much going against America, even though it's an ally. Because if I'm not mistaken, pretty much all the articles I covered on similar topics involve France basically being against what the U.S. has to say. One of the main ones against what the U.S. has to say. So it says France had, America's allies are going to pretty much help destroy America in the end. That's what happens eventually, and pretty much what we're seeing is the escalation to that. Because I remember, first reading that, or not too long ago, we didn't quite know exactly how we would get to that point, just that it's prophecy, so we knew that it would get to that point, and we knew that America and its allies already had tensions. America's allies already looked at America a certain way, but I believe a couple months ago, was it January? I believe it was January when pretty much the U.S. did that whole Venezuela raid and kidnapped the president of a whole different country. That's when the tensions really escalated, and America's allies, really started voicing their their disagreements, for lack of a better word, with America, and that's when we started to see the pretty much the avenue that the Lord was taking in creating that turmoil between America and its allies, and now dealing with this war, America is just basically painting itself a more worse face than it did before amongst its allies, man. So we see how the Lord is escalating that tension, and he's using these devils to do it as he said he would, That's Revelation 16th chapter and I believe the 13th verse, as well as Revelation the 20th chapter and around the 8th verse. Let's see, since we're here, and it shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog being Russia, to gather them together to battle, and that ultimate battle being what? World War III, the number of whom is at the stand of the sea, as well as Revelation the 16th chapter the 13th verse, 14th verse. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to battle of that great day of the God Almighty. Again, going into pretty much World War III, which is going to be the day of the Lord's return, that the climax of World War III, because the Lord is going to be the one via his son Yahushua and the angels to put an end to that world war in the kingdom of Esau Edom. So basically, as I was saying, the Lord is escalating the tensions pretty much for that war and the ending of that war through Esau, So continuing here, France has reportedly refused to allow the United States to use its airspace to transport weapons for the Iran conflict, marking the first such denial since the war began, according to Reuters. This follows a similar move by Spain, signaling growing reluctance and angst among key European allies. Right? Reluctance and angst among key European allies, man. That's literally, a precursor to Revelation 17 and 16. Revelation 17, verse 16. At the same time, Slovakia, right, signaling growing reluctance and angst among key European allies to facilitate U.S. military logistics. At the same time, Italy has denied certain U.S. aircraft access to an airbase in Sicily, right, in which Italy, they basically had a scapegoat, and we're going to see what it was. Though officials there insist the issue stems from procedural violations, right? They say that America was pretty much en route to head to the base before, and I'm putting it in layman's terms. America was pretty much en route to head to the base, and they gave them a call while they were already around the corner saying, yo, we got to stop in. Meanwhile, there's procedures that's supposed to happen beforehand, pretty much to have things, what's the word? Okayed, right? To be given a green light, then you can head over and do what you got to do. But America basically jumped past that, expecting Italy to just be like, all right, come on in. But that didn't happen. So that's the excuse that Italy is going with. That's their scapegoat, as we're going to read, right? Though officials there insist the issue stems from procedural violations. So the America violated the procedures that's supposed to be taken, in order for the airbase to pretty much be used. Though officials there insist the issue stems from procedural violations, specifically that the Pentagon failed to obtain proper authorization before requesting landing clearance. Italian officials emphasized that all requests must comply with established agreements and legal frameworks, and which is really one of those things where it's like you don't really want to do this, so luckily for you, you have a reason to say no. Even though you wanted to say no, but you really couldn't do it without, making things look bad. So luckily for you, there's a reason you can do both. Italian officials emphasized that all requests must comply with established agreements and legal frameworks, which require case-by-case approval and in some cases parliamentary oversight. And that is a very that's a plausible reason, right? That's a great excuse. That's reasonable. This legal positioning provides the Meloni government with a way to limit involvement and so domestic fallout among largely anti-war youth, while maintaining formal cooperation even as domestic opposition to the conflict and unease over U.S. interventionism continue to grow. Now here is the peace framework between, or that China and Pakistan have proposed. China, Pakistan issue 5-point peace framework, and again, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction, and even, well, let's actually grab that, because that really goes deeper. It's the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3. We start from the top. It's the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 1. The day of the Lord. But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Why? Because we're watching, and going back to the point I made earlier with, Trump and pretty much Esau and their deceptiveness, and how we have to, pretty much go off the action of these devils instead of the words that they're saying. you know, because they're double tongued, they're deceivers. They lie, they tell you one thing, then they do another, right? They tell you one thing, then the opposite happens. So we have to, you know, pretty much look at their actions and not what they say, but look at what the scriptures say and look at these devils' actions. You know, that's what it means to pretty much watch with spiritual, prophetic, you know, eye. To watch what's going on and filter it through the scriptures. And that's how we know what the times and the seasons, right? We know when the Lord is near, because scriptures say that what war, you know, the world would pretty much be in turmoil, right? War and division on all fronts when the Lord is his return is near. Is that not what's happening now? You know? So, but the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night, right? For those who aren't watching. For when they shall say, in which we don't know the day or the hour either, but we can tell when it's soon, versus someone who can't even tell that. They're just completely caught off guard. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right? And this is why I said, right, that it really goes deeper, because dealing with America, you know, they say peace and safety, thinking that nothing is going to happen to America. You know, that's why here it is. America is literally at war with a completely different country, yet Americans, you know, don't seem to care, in the sense of they're just living like normally, as if a war is not even happening, right? Going on vacations and so on and so forth, you know, when we're literally in a time of war. Instead of preparing and, you know, watching how things escalate and what it means for you know, for them, they just don't even care, you know, because they think that nothing can happen to America. No bombs are going to get dropped on American soil, right? And so on and so forth. But that's further from the truth. That's why scriptures say what? Then sudden destruction cometh upon them. And that sudden destruction is going to come by way of the Lord, especially when the Lord returns and these missiles are launched at America, as well as the lasers from the chariots of the angels and Yahweh Shai are also launched at America. That's going to be that sudden destruction, you know. But precursor to that, what? The Lord is going to have plagues. But plagues, you know, that's basically just fucking up the people. No, that sudden, that destruction is going to come by America literally being destroyed by fire. And they shall not escape, right? So everyone on the soils of America, there's no escape for you. You know, that judgment, you were allotted for that judgment. The only escape is for the elect of the nation of Israel, who get beamed up from pretty much participating in that judgment. You know, deliverance, salvation. So going back here, because it made me think, reading here about a peace framework, it made me think how back when Trump was first reelected, which wasn't long ago, you know, it feels like it was a while ago considering where the world is right now, but it was only a couple months ago, you know, yet this is where the world is. And I say that because when he was around first being elected, you know, what was his New Year's resolution? What was one of the things that Trump pushed the most? Was peace. You know, bringing peace to the world, bringing peace to the Middle East. I believe his New Year's resolution, and I did a lesson on it, was was world peace. You know, peace to the world. And at his pretty much presidency, as him being the quote unquote head of America, because we know even he takes orders, contrary to popular belief, this is where the world is at. The world is on a downfall, you know. It goes to show you it's not about you know, the thoughts or the will of everyone else, but the Lord's will. And that's also a perfect example of that scriptures, 1 Thessalonians 5:3. When they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. Trump was pushing peace the second he got into office. Now look at the world. He pretty much started World War III. China and Pakistan on Tuesday issued a 5-point initiative for restoring peace in the Gulf and Middle East, right? In which this is what Trump claimed to have done. But now China and Pakistan are forming this 5-point initiative to do just that. After Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar in Beijing, these countries have taken the lead, with Islamabad, in which Islamabad, I believe that's the capital of Pakistan. And again, it does not hurt to search it up. Islamabad is the capital city of Pakistan. Okay, capital city of Pakistan. Okay, right. So going back, playing host to shuttle diplomacy, in which we just read up there, the U.S. doesn't give a damn about diplomacy, because if that was the case, this war would not have even happened. They were mid-negotiation and still decided to launch missiles at Israel. Slovakia launch missiles at hey, that's a spirit, because Israel's not safe either. The destruction of America is also going to be the destruction of Israel and pretty much the Holy Land over there in the Middle East, because when the Lord returns, missiles and lasers are hitting the Holy Land as well. The difference between the Holy Land and the U.S. is that the Holy Land is going to be rebuilt, because that's our land, and where the Lord is going to bring it back, or bring us back to our land, and he's going to have these devils rebuild it for us as slaves in the kingdom. But what I wanted to say was, what did I want to say? These countries have taken the lead, with Islamabad playing host to shuttle diplomacy. Right. America doesn't care about diplomacy because they were mid-negotiation, and yet still started attacking with Israel, Iran. After earlier Egypt, and I don't know why they think that these devils are going to change. After earlier Egypt and Turkey also sent their top diplomat for a Sunday summit. In short, it is broken down according to these 5 points in headings, laying out a broad path for Iran war ceasefire and permanent truce. Immediate cessation of hostilities. China and Pakistan call for immediate cessation of hostilities and utmost efforts to prevent the conflict from spreading. Start of peace talks as soon as possible. Security of non-military targets. Security of shipping lanes. Primacy of the United Nations Charter, in which the primacy of the United Nations Charter means to basically uphold the laws or procedures within that charter first, to make it primary, to make it the most important, because the UN Charter is looking like shit. It has been looking like shit these past couple months, years actually, with all that's going on between these different countries, between the war going on in the world, man. The UN it's just been quiet. Notably, there's nothing in here about denuclearization of Iran or anything touching, and then, dealing with America. They cannot just pull out without gaining some sort of victory. Why? Because the pride would be hit. This is supposed to be America, the greatest country in the world, yet they just lost to Iran. Right? That's like a NBA player losing to a 10-year-old in a one-on-one. Mind you, it's not even one-on-one, because the U.S. and Israel are jumping Iran right now, yet losing. So if they were to pull out, how would that look for America? If anything, that would just let these other nations know that they really don't need America. So America, even though they're the powers that at be, the elites, their goal is to collapse this world. But America, they cannot just leave without having some sort of victory or making it look like they've gained some sort of victory, you know? So if they were to leave, especially without reopening the Strait of Hormuz, that'd be a complete, you know, devastation to the look of America. Notably, there's nothing in here about the denuclearization of Iran or anything touching on what might be U.S.-Israeli strategic aims, right? What might be strategic aims, because no one knows what the hell they're aiming for at this point. Like, what was the point of this war? You know? And it's funny because they don't really need a point in this war. Who needs a point in doing something is the Heavenly Father, and He has a point, you know, to ultimately bring down their kingdom. That's the real point of this war, is to bring down this corrupt world and the rulership of the heathen, right? Luke 21 to 21st verse, until the I forgot the phrasing of it, so let's just grab it. It's the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 24, straight to the point. And the reason they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations, speaking about Israel, right, in which we're in that predicament today. The Lord is going to gather us and bring us back to our land, and Jerusalem shall be down and shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, the other nations, which again, this is currently happening, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Meaning there's going to come a time where the rulership of the heathen is over. That's it being filled. You know, it's done. And that's what the Lord, you know, is causing all of this to happen for that time to be fulfilled. Scripture speaking about a new world, right? World going into the word aeon, being a time period, a period of time, an age. The Lord is coming to bring an end to the age of Gentile rulership. What happened? Where were we? Right, so here, in short, it is broken down according to these 5 points and headings laying out, right? We read that. Notably, there's nothing in here about the nuclearization of Iran or anything touching on what might be U.S.-Israeli strategic aims, but instead it is quite ambiguous and broad as a proposed starting point. This comes as the U.S. has signaled it could be open to an off-ramp or peace deal even if the Hormuz Strait remains under Iran's de facto control. Here is the document. So what would have been the fucking point? Here is the document issued by Pakistan's official Ministry of Foreign Affairs accounts on social media, which I don't think I'm going to read this. They pretty much broke down the 5 points here. Secretary of War Hegseth says upcoming days will be decisive, damaging Iran military morale. War Secretary Hegseth comments were not quite a mission accomplished, but definitely a reflection on the courage and completion of systematically destroy Iran's military capabilities. Hegseth said he visited U.S. troops involved in operations against Iran over the weekend, describing a campaign that is intensifying as American firepower ramps up while Iran capabilities decline, in which, right, we went over this. You know, that doesn't really seem to be the case. Which this is a different part, right? Did we not read that already? Oh, okay, that was up here. Okay, how long is this? Wow. Well, I have the time, so we'll use it. War Secretary Hegseth's comments were not quite a mission accomplished, but definitely a reflection of the courage and completion of systematically destroy Iran's military capabilities. Hegseth said he visited U.S. troops involved in operations against Iran over the weekend, describing a campaign that is intensifying as American firepower ramps up while Iran's capabilities decline. He stressed that upcoming days will be decisive, acknowledging Iran is still expected to launch missiles, but adding, "We will shoot down." Right? How much money is that costing? Incoming threats, according to Hegseth, sustained U.S. strikes are not only degrading military assets, but also damaging Iran's military morale and triggering widespread Iran military desertions. And another key line, "We would much prefer to get a deal if Iran was willing to relinquish material they have and ambitions they have. Open the strait, great. That's the goal. We don't want to have to do more militarily than we have to." And he's saying that opening the strait, great, that's the goal, when the strait wasn't a problem until the war started. So what is the real goal? You know, going back to what we read up there earlier, how the goal has, or the problem has become something that wasn't a problem before the war, or something along those effects that we read up here. Right, the goal of the war has become fixing a problem that didn't exist before the war, which shows you that's not the real goal, you know? That's the goal. We don't have to do more militarily than we have to. So yeah, that shows you that's just not the real goal, you know? He went further, claiming regime change has occurred in Iran, while warning that if Tehran refuses to make a deal, Washington will press ahead. If Iran isn't willing to make deal, U.S. will continue, he said, adding the strikes will persist with more intensity in the absence of an agreement. Off-ramp imminent. Trump tells world, go get your own oil via strait after decimating Iran. There's been a lot of speculation. So what the fuck was the point of this? We're going to start a problem with Iran. They close the strait. We decimate. He's saying that as if the problem was always the strait being closed and they decimated Iran. So now other countries can just go open the strait for themselves and get the oil back. When none of this was a problem before you guys just started to attack Iran, you know? There's been a lot of speculation that the White House is preparing to find a mission accomplished declaration moment as any off-ramp will do. And exactly, right? Because they cannot just leave without some sort of victory, man. That's going to completely, you know, destroy America's face. Declaration moment as any off-ramp will do as a way to avoid a costly potential quagmire of introducing ground troops, and we may be seeing the start of one, right? Because what they already sent them to the Middle East. You know, I know they didn't send them there just to bring them right back. After comments apparently leaked to the Wall Street Journal overnight that Trump is willing to leave Iran with the strait unopened, the president has clarified his thinking in his out loud voice this morning. President Trump has posted on social media this morning, clearly signaling he is further down the road towards an off-ramp. All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, right? Because as we said, you know, this man is not America, right? We're saying Trump because he's like the face of America, but really America, they're not looking really in terms of, you know, everyone else or really logic. Here it is, you just started a war or pretty much joined a war that for nothing, right, on the behest of Israel, They say that they weren't drawn into the war on the behest of Israel, and they say that, and Netanyahu himself said that, you know, this was Trump's idea. Trump pretty much wanted to help, and you know, they didn't draw America into this, right? I remember we watched a video of him saying that in a lesson I did previously. But if that's the case, what was America's goal? America doesn't even have a goal. So to say that this was Trump's idea, we just attacking Iran for fun, Mr. Peace President. So you know that's bullshit. Because if this was his idea, what was the intention behind it? What was the goal? What were we supposed to gain from this? Or what were they? Let me not say we. What were they supposed to gain from this? You know? So all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, because why would they? Joining a war for zero reason. That's like, again, putting it in common, I guess, in a common example. You're with your group, right? Group of friends, and one of them just decides to go steal or beat up on a homeless man for some random reason, and they expect everyone else to join in and help them. To just start beating on a random for no reason and expects everyone to help them. And then they get mad that no one is coming to help them do stupid shit. I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage to go to the strait and just take it. So you see why it is that America's allies are basically going to aid. Because I'm pretty sure they already itching to press that button and hit America, man. This is the type of shit that America does. You know, that pisses everyone else off. So now it's not far-fetched to see that America's allies are also going to launch nukes at America, man. You can see that being a possibility now. Number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait and just take it. As if, you know, nigga, this was not a problem until y'all started something. Now you want us to go to war for something that you did, when if you just sat back, none of this would be happening. Now we're dealing with your mess. You have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore. And see, now he's trying to play this big brother role, like, bro, you just caused this. You know, that would piss me off too. But that's, you see why the Lord puts a focus on destroying America, and that is going to be pretty much the kingdom of Esau falling once the Lord destroys America, you know, and takes these devils out of power, because America is that heart and pride of Esau, Edom today. Iran has been essentially decimated, yet they still have to, you know, do away with the strength remaining. The hard part is done, and go get your own oil. Wow. The reaction was a drop in the price of oil and stocks rising. And really, this is just another way of asking for help. You know, trying to act like, oh, okay, I don't care anymore. Y'all the ones who need the oil. Y'all can go get it. And stocks rising. More images of stocks in the chart. Nothing dramatic in either, as traders remain nervous of Trump talks still, but nevertheless, as Goldman's Rich Pravoratsky noted overnight in a seemingly precognitive comment before Trump's tweet, this is shaping up like an off-ramp. After 5 weeks of conflict, President Trump told aides he's willing to end the U.S. military campaign against Iran, even if the Strait of Hormuz remains largely closed. WSJ, I believe that's something journal. Politically messy. Wall Street Journal. Politically messy, especially in GCC, in which the GCC, I believe that is the Gulf states, countries. Let's see. Gulf Cooperation Council, right. Most commonly refers to the GNU Compiler Collection, or the Gulf Cooperation Council, a political economic union of 6 Arab states: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman. It can also refer, and that's what it's referred to, right? The Gulf Cooperation Council. Especially in GCC, less so domestically, but probably the least bad short-term pathway, can argue LT worse. There's a press conference at 8 a.m. Eastern Time from the Defense Department. Overnight saw a meaningful escalation. Iran struck a heavily laden oil tanker in Dubai port, a very explicit signal around control of shipping, likely in response to U.S. actions around nuclear facilities in Isfahan. Trump, on his Truth Social, posted uncaptioned video of large explosion 5 hours ago. That's 29 seconds. Alright, let's see what we think. The most bullish near-term outcome would be a mission accomplished style announcement, i.e. nuclear capabilities set back materially, say 10 to 20 years, allowing the U.S. to step away. No edge here, frankly, could be anything, but we'll be watching. The key shift then remains the strait. If the U.S. pauses while Iran maintains some level of disruption, the pressure flips. China, Korea, Japan, India, Europe, and the GCC all become directly incentivized to force flows back online, right? Why? Because they need it more so than America does. Even partial restrictions, example given, U.S./Israeli vessels are manageable, so a unilateral victory could actually restart flows and shift pressure to row, in which row means rest of world, to get straight moving. 2,000-pound bunker. So effectively, America made a mess, and now everyone else has to clean. America and Israel made a mess, and now everyone else has to clean it up. No one likes cleaning up after someone else. 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs hits Isfahan hard overnight, and again, Isfahan was the industrial city in Iran. Videos and reporting for the region has made clear that the central Iranian city of Isfahan has been hit very hard in the latest U.S.-Israeli strikes. A major ammunition depot and other military-linked sites were attacked using 2,000-pound bunker busters. Isfahan is the Islamic Republic's third most populous city, and is believed to host majority of the nation's highly enriched uranium, as well as a sprawling missile city. The Wall Street Journal reported that a high volume of bunker busters or penetrator munitions was used for the strike at a large ammunition depot, creating immense fireballs. U.S. forces have now hit more than 11,000 targets over the month-long war, focusing heavily on degrading Iran's missile, drone, as well as nuclear power and development sites. CBC has written the attacks were testament to intensity of the month-long war the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suggested in an interview that Israel has achieved more than half of its war aims, which are what? The heavy overnight explosions were widely recorded, being viewed for miles around. Isfahan, here it is. Israel is claiming to have achieved its war claims. Netanyahu is claiming that they did not drag the U.S. into this. In fact, Trump wanted this, yet Trump and America has gained nothing from this, right? Isfahan is home to one of 3 sites early attacked by the U.S. military last year. NASA fire tracking satellites suggest explosions happened in a mountainous region on the city's southern edge. The report described further, noting that Iran has yet to confirm the attack. President Trump previously warned on Truth Social, great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, he continued, We will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, in which Karg Island is the island that pretty much Iran's most exports come from. I believe it's around 93% of the oil is extracted from that island. And possibly all desalination plants, right? So this is effectively doing this would kill Iran, you know, as well as it'll be a domino effect, right? Those who rely on these sources coming out of Iran or that strait or whatever, that region. As for the ordnance used, Bunker Buster, right, it says, which we have purposely not yet touched, and which they actually did touch Karg Island already, but they didn't, completely mess it up. As for the ordnance used, Bunker Buster refers to a class of bombs engineered to drive deep beneath the surface, particularly through rock, soil, or reinforced concrete before detonating. The technology was honed and widely used by the U.S. during the Persian Gulf War of 1991. Right, so that seems to be all. We can close it off with the scripture here. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. We can start here at verse 1 and jump down. It's the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season and a time, to every purpose under the heaven. Jumping down to verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Now it's clear to see that we are in a time of war, which the Lord said would happen, right? But when his return was near. So knowing that, we should be preparing for that return and continuing to do so, right? Giving diligence and preparing for that return. So with that being said, once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Lord willing, this video was edifying, uplifting, and or informative in some way, shape, or form. And shalom to the hopeful elect.